John Coyle, and it was 44, I think I started. And you forget these things, you know. When you become young, you forget things. But yes, I can't even remember the name of the rector then.
Well, I can ask you that a wee bit later. There's a few people. First question is the one that's very common to everyone just now. How did you end up in Blairs?
Strangely enough, it was very difficult to think it through. I had been in Ireland until the end of my primary, and when I came here, my dad was working here, but we were in Donegal. But when I came here, I think it was Father O'Keefe, the priest I met first. And no, it wasn't. It was Father O'Kane. He was the first priest I met, and they were always very close to you, the priests at that time. They visited you, and they became part of the family. And Father O'Kane used to play drafts with my dad, so he was maybe once a week we'd see him. And I think it was he who made me think about going there. But you don't remember exactly, you know, but it was.
So, and was Blairs the one you were thinking about, or did
but there were 2 or 3 of us who were on the altar, and we were thinking, and the other 2 went down to England to the priests that are now in Castlemilk.
Right.
And
Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost Fathers as they were.
But that's the other 2 went and one went to Jesuits.
Right.
So, and thank God one of them got through. The Jesuit did finally become a priest.
You chose the better part. What do you remember, John, about your arrival in Blairs? You know, leaving Glasgow.
The strangeness of it, because. Well, for example, we had, at that time, now this shows you how long it was, we just got electricity into our house. We had a gas light before that. So they're going up there, and when I went there, they were actually putting in new electric lights all over the place. So it was strange to me, quite strange. I just, well, of course it's strange, you just don't know what's going to happen to you. And I quickly got friends. And I mean, that's really what settles you when you get 2 or 3 people that you get to know well.
What was your first impression when you saw the building, maybe from the outside, you know?
Now, that's not clear in my mind. I was thinking about that. It's sort of the most impressive building when you go up there, it is. But I don't remember looking up and seeing it, you know. Because at that time, we took the train to Aberdeen and got taxis out.
Oh, right. Okay, taxis out.
Oh, there was a shortage of. I would imagine it would have been difficult to hire buses then.
Yeah. How many people roughly would be there at the time, John? Do you know?
The number 112.
Right.
I think that's about. It could have been a bit more. And that's why that sticks in my mind is because my cubicle, which became my laundry number, was at 111. So I knew that I was pretty close to it. There would be probably more. Because I think in terms of about 30 in a year, in first year. So I'm probably 24-ish by the time you get to the last one, you know.
Who was the rector when you arrived?
That I can't. The name McGonigal.
Yeah, Alan McGonigal. Yeah.
That's. He was. You never saw him.
McGonigal,
You only ever saw him at dinner.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was quite remote.
Oh God, he was. He was. Kindly, but he was apart.
Yeah.
And the priests were quite apart, unless the ones who were teaching you, because I mean the prof's corridor was sacred.
So was he a rector for all of your time there?
No, we then had the man who became Archbishop of Edinburgh.
Oh, Gordon Gray.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
He was there.
And then there would be Bishop McGill after that, after your time.
He was a spiritual director when I was there. It was an English name, a very tall man. I can see him. But
No problem. Any other staff you remember?
One or two. Father Duddy, Willie Duddy.
Oh yeah, aye.
He was a great footballer.
Aye.
They used to say he would have played for Celtic. You know, that was always with it. Because I wasn't good enough to play against the professor right enough. But that used to be a great game too. And Father Duffy.
Oh yeah.
The wee Duff.
Yeah.
He was superb. He was a great priest and a great teacher too.
Yeah, great musician, I believe. Yeah.
He was superb. And Father McKee, historian.
Oh yeah.
We used to call him Belloc. He was always called the Belloc.
Why do we know?
Because he was a historian.
Right.
And they associated him with Hilaire Belloc.
Yeah. Aye. Of course. Yeah. Aye.
And I think Father McGill was spiritual director then.
It would be.
Yes, it was.
There was a priest who was a great footballer, but he was known as the Jigger, but I don't know what his name
Oh,
is. Father McKean.
Is that?
Aye.
But see, that jigs my mind, but it just has not come back.
It's the name I've heard,
They had some very good footballers. That.
So you found the rector, and this is a common theme that's coming through. People are finding the rector maybe was quite a remote figure.
Yeah, but you expected that. I mean, that's. I mean, I associate him with the bishop, and the bishop was remote, you know, and it was. You didn't think that was strange. You wouldn't. You expected that, and even your teachers at first were a bit back. Once you got to know them, they were fine.
Yeah.
But it was a completely different attitude. A priest was somebody you saluted.
Did you have foreign masters at all?
Willie Duddy.
Oh, so Father Willie Duddy was your foreign master.
He was.
Were you closer to him than?
Yes, because you went to, after supper, you went up to their room if you wanted and sat about and listened to the radio.
Right.
Oh, that was great getting to, because there was no telly then.
Of course, what were the radio programmes? Was there favourites?
No, it was on. It was usually news when I went up there because the war was on.
Of course, yeah. Yes, to forget. Yes, if you went there in 44, that'd be true. Do you have memories of blackouts or anything at the time?
We weren't really affected by it at all because there was no. I didn't hear. There was never a siren went.
No. But by 44, that would be
They had stopped it.
Yeah. Any other people you remember? And we'll go into maybe friends, later. But any other people you remember, either maybe the sisters or? Oh,
there was quite a lot of very good sisters,
Yeah.
And they all had nicknames. They used to have some.
Can you tell us one or two of them?
I know. We had one called the Bull,
right.
And that was because she just hashed into everything. She was very good and kindly, but she couldn't. She just didn't stop. She just went. What she was doing, she did. And then we ended up doing a bit of helping with them in fifth year, because they had a lot of work to do. And we had, because at that time we had the philosophers as well. The philosophers were still studying there, I think, for the first 2 years I was there.
Would there be a distinction between the philosophers and the classicians?
Complete. We didn't associate with them at all. Right, okay. We had the same refectory, but they had 2 tables in the middle, and we were around the side.
Okay.
You didn't speak to them. No, I don't mean you didn't want to. You were told not to. You were a separate community, quite clearly.
And the church, was there a division?
They had an oratory.
The one halfway up the stairs?
Right. Which became 5th year oratory after that.
That became the senior oratory.
Yes,
and
which
became
was
the junior oratory.
Yes.
In Paul's time, So that was obviously a well-used oratory,
Well, it was a lovely place to go for a prayer.
So, and I believe things like they were very good in the choir because a lot of bass voices.
Yes,
I believe, yeah.
They did the Schola Cantorum.
Yeah. But the wee bits, some of us were envious of people who were in the Schola and, not. It was a big place, obviously. I mean, the college itself and
Immense.
the dormitories, they were fairly massive, but there was also an extensive area of gardens and farm and the rest. Do you remember much of that, John?
No, the only thing I remember the walk, the lovely time you could go for walks, take half an hour to get around bits of it.
Aye.
But the philosophers had their own football field.
Yeah.
That was reserved for them, and then down in front we had in the summertime we had a cricket pitch.
Oh yeah.
But during the rest of the year there was a golf pitch there. It wasn't a particularly good one, but you could play golf on it. But that was, you had to ask permission and get permission, so you didn't get many chances of playing golf. But they used the land well, and of course there was a lot of working farms belonging to them. Which
Did you have any encounters with the workers on the farm or with the animals or?
None of the animals,
No.
and I was a great animal man because I was brought up on the farm in Donegal, and we knew them to nod to,
Aye, yeah.
but they didn't become part of it, except when you were picking spuds, when you're picking up the potatoes, you would talk to them then, But it was.
Were they still using horses at the end of the war?
They were,
Yeah,
yes.
so the tractors hadn't come really that much. Yeah.
I would imagine by the time I finished, the tractor would have been more common,
Aye.
but there was horses when we started.
Yeah, because there'd be a shortage, obviously, of tractors.
It was still used to deliver bread in the street down here with horsemen.
Yeah.
Beatties had 2 horses in there.
Right. Were those the big Clydesdales? Yeah.
They were beautiful big horses, yeah.
Horses, yeah. Interesting. And did you pick a lot of spuds?
Well, just October, they got a week off school in October and went out and just lifted the spuds,
Yeah.
And that was great fun, That was really good fun.
What did you do for eating when you were doing the spuds? Do you remember that?
I can't now. Thinking back, I never felt starved or anything.
Yeah.
But when I look back, I think it was a very limited choice.
Aye.
You didn't get the breakfast was a porridge and
Right, okay.
and a slice of bread, basically. Lunch was.
Was there an alternative to the porridge? But in our time, it was porridge or cornflakes. One day the other.
No, we just got what was there. There was no, and the bread was in the plate. You didn't get a choice of,
Yeah.
you got the same amount every day, And it was,
What about the main meal of the day? Any memorable main meals?
oh, well, the rat pie was the best bit. But do you remember that yourself?
This is a recurring theme.
Oh, I was, and that was one father, the maths teacher who said that one day. I can always remember he started. He said, I can't remember how, but he was the one who called it. I remember calling it first, and after that it was always.
Right. That is new. We have never heard that story before. We knew that it was called that, but we didn't know why.
I can remember just saying it in parish, and it was a very rare thing. A mathematician with a sense of humour.
Yeah. Irish stew, was that on the agenda?
Now that doesn't. I don't recall that specifically, but I'm sure it would be.
It would be Friday pud, bread pudding.
But that was the ordinary pod, yeah.
Right.
And when you were, it was really a privilege when you got the corner.
Right.
For the two youngest got the piece from the middle.
Yeah.
And it was when you get into third year, you got a corner.
How was it divided?
Well, at each table they had a divider and a subdivider.
Yeah.
And who was the third one? Tea man. Subscrub.
Yeah.
He did the tea.
Yeah.
And that was more or less it.
Right.
But it was usually reasonably well divided. But it's quite a bit more in the corners at times. Naturally, it's just the way things work. But
Yeah.
and then the Vestipod was quite different. But
What was Festipod?
Vestipod was it was just, it wasn't in a container.
Oh.
It was and it had nice custard with it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, festive pud was good.
Would be it.
I remember Father McGill used to make up songs, and one of the songs he made up had the line in it, "Steal the front side's festive pud."
It's classic, this is lovely. Did you have duties in the refectory? Sorry, we called it the refectory.
Yes.
The factory, obviously. Did you have duties to do, you know?
No, not there. No. If you you hadn't.
No.
The tea man was responsible for that. That was about all.
Yeah.
But no. But
No wash up or anything?
you could volunteer to help,
Oh, right.
you know. But you didn't do the washing. You just put it in the machine.
Piled it.
Yes.
All right.
Boiling, and it was boiling. What I mean, you didn't put it in and turn it on. You put it in and took it out in boiling water. You know.
And would be the sisters who were actually doing
The sisters were responsible, but you could go in and help. They were always good if you went there, because you always got a biscuit or something, which was these were.
We talked a wee bit about the sisters. Do you remember the infirmarian? Was she a sister?
No, specifically, I was lucky in that I was never in the infirmary. Used to spoil them in the infirmary.
Right.
I know that, yes.
Right. Do you remember what dormitory you were in?
Well, in the first one, I was in the big dormitory,
St John's.
which the infirmary was down at the foot of that.
All right, St John's then would be, yeah.
I don't think it had a name. I don't think.
Well, they were named later then. There was Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. So.
I said, well, I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
But you changed every year, you know,
Yeah.
and you qualified for a window by the time you got to third year.
Yeah, if you were lucky.
Oh, that was an achievement. That was a real achievement.
Yeah. You were saying, like myself, you probably weren't that much into football. I mean, I liked football, but I had no ability.
That was like
Was there
you.
other games, John, that you enjoyed or took part in?
No, really, football was the only game we had
Right.
until at the end of the war, we got a gym teacher in.
Oh, yeah.
Who was he wasn't a priest, he was only a non-priest, I think.
Right.
That was the first time we got gym.
Right.
Before that, your gym was playing football, you know.
And was that in the play hall then, what we called the play hall?
Or by that time the philosopher's pitch.
Of course, with them going, yeah. That's fascinating. Because there were parallel bars, weren't there? And there was a horses and things.
They had good. They had this equipment, yeah.
Other games, cricket, table tennis.
You played cricket if you had to, you know.
I like the expression. That's my immediate when you said cricket.
It's got quite.
Was there anything at the wall?
No, I've never seen that used. Because I remember, coming from Donegal, they played a lot of that sort of wall game. And I remember thinking, I wonder why they're not using the wall, you know.
It wasn't used, no. It was used extensively from the 50s onward, John, I would have to say.
Yeah,
We used the pale wall.
Ah.
And pale, of course, is the Irish for a ball. So obviously there was an Irish influence on it. But it was used right till the closure. And it was very, very busy in our time. So that's interesting. So I was going to ask you if you played pale, but you didn't play pale. No. So cricket really would be the other one, yeah.
Well, you played it if you had to, as you said. Yeah. And there weren't many pitches. I think we'd only two.
Yeah. I think we were the same, yeah. Any good sports people in your year or whatever?
No outstanding. No one who. Father McAvity.
Right.
Yeah, he was my year group with mine. He was a very good footballer, but he'd one habit which everybody noticed. If he made a mistake, he started limping. Always remember that about the old Maca, they call him Macazata, you know. He's died quite young, I think. Yeah.
Right. Any other bits of the grounds, the bounds down the side road? Did we ever in the front road, for instance?
No, we weren't. You only went on walks we didn't get out
Right.
except in a walk. We used to go for, if you weren't playing football, you went for a walk,
Yeah.
a lined up walk.
Yeah.
And I used to go to the Mill Inn or further the other way down to the, do you remember the Shack and Briggy?
Yep. Went well, yeah.
I used to love that. Was a lovely walk. I used to
That was a
enjoy
great
that.
walk, yeah. Were there ever enforced walks? Do you remember croc walks at all?
A what?
Crocodile walks?
In what did you mean?
In Blairs, if people hadn't been taking exercise,
Yes, it was always.
would do a force match.
Yes,
of
but I mean, it was fairly relaxed. They didn't sort of keep you in line. You had, it was always three.
Right.
Always three.
That'd be stale company was the
That's
phrase
right.
they used.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. All these names coming back, you know.
There's a lot of sense in that too. There was a great deal of sense in that when you think back about it. At the time, you thought it was stupid.
Aye. We had actually somebody who gave us the other day Nunquam dress or something was never three. It was quite definite that, you know. Yeah, that was it. What was the routine when you were there, John? What would, getting up early in the morning?
I can't remember the exact time. It was fairly early, about 7 o'clock we got up.
Yeah, maybe early.
And then you would have mass, morning prayers and meditation.
Yeah.
So mass would be 8ish, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then up for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And no break. You got to walk around the quadrangle for breakfast, and then you went into school about 9. And at first, for the first 3 or 4 years I was there was no mid-morning break. You got lunch,
right.
But about halfway through, they started giving us milk and biscuits halfway through.
Yeah.
But that was...
And was it every day a school day, or were there breaks?
Tuesday, the second Tuesday was sacred. That was a great day. That was a great day.
This is one wasn't known to the later generation of the 70s and 80s. It was well known to us in the 60s, certainly.
That was...
Tuesday and Thursday afternoons would be free?
No, we didn't have Thursday. Tuesday was... the second Tuesday of the month was a full day.
It was a full day, yeah.
But there was no afternoons.
There was no half days. All right, okay, right. Aye.
And of course Saturday and Sunday.
Aye. And high mass on the Sunday, obviously.
Yeah. That was.
And of course that would be.
And that was special.
Yes. High mass.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Beautiful.
It was,
you went up. I went right through. I've done all the serving and that, because you did that in certain years. Your acolyte,
Did you have an office in Blairs? By office, I mean, were you given a responsibility either in the chapel or?
No, I didn't ever. I used to be responsible for. There was in 50. Really, you went to 5th year, but there was a room in the professor's corridor, which was allocated to 4th, 5th year, where they could go and read, and that was I had the responsibility for that in my 5th year, but that's the only thing I ever did.
Is that along at the end?
The full length along. I think it was called the Bishop's Room at one time.
We knew it as the reading room. That's what they called it then.
Right.
So obviously it's been used. Were you ever in the big library, the official old library?
Never official, except for when my parents came. I went, but students weren't. But it never crossed your mind to go there. You didn't think about it.
You'll be shocked to hear that by the 80s people studied in the big library.
No, I often wondered about it, but it was a sort of sacred place, Mary Queen of Scots,
You mentioned when parents come up. What were the special days?
Well, he came only when my first year. I didn't get home at Christmas.
Right.
It was still. So after that, for the rest of the time, they could come up at Christmas or Easter.
Right.
There was no other visiting at all.
Right. And would they stay in Aberdeen and see?
Stay in Aberdeen, and you would.
Were you allowed out with them into Aberdeen? Or?
Well, it was quite strange. I got into trouble once because you could meet your parents in Aberdeen, but you really needed somebody to take you in because you weren't allowed to have money.
Of course, yeah.
So I lost a day's visit because my mum gave me money to get the bus back in, and I didn't declare it. But I mean, it might sound harsh, but that was life. That was life, you know. It did.
Yeah, that was that. And would the Master of Discipline have been responsible for that?
Yeah.
Aye.
Now, who was it? Breen, Father Breen.
Yeah, maybe.
That.
You mentioned the Mary Queen of Scots. Was the portrait there, and where was it?
The vestments were there.
There was a special room, John, if I remember correctly, for Mary Queen. It was known as the Mary Queen of Scots room.
Yes,
With the portrait and one or two of the...
the vestments.
And was that still in the Props corridor?
Oh,
It wasn't Props corridor. Everything was in the Props.
It was the billiard room.
Yes, that's right.
It was halfway along, facing some of the Props rooms.
And
again, high days and holidays, if I'm right, John, was the only time we saw that.
You were never in the professor's corridor unless you're going to your housemaster.
Aye.
That's about the only time you went.
You didn't have form rooms then, John, no?
No, we didn't. No, we
Because
didn't.
by the time we had arrived, the old Minnis Mansion with the theatre, they changed bits of that into form rooms for us, you know. Any memories of the theatre then?
Oh, we had lots of good. We used to get. Father McKee used to bring films in. We used to see films in the theatre. That was quite good. But there was always a good, at least one good show in the year. And they were always very well done.
Yeah. Any special one you remember?
Usually it was one of the Gilbert Sullivan they did.
Right, okay.
But there was one year they did a straight play, and I'm blowed if I can remember the name of it. But I was very impressed with it. But the acting, you see the quality that's in people that you don't see unless you get that opportunity on the stage. What was the name of that? It was... I remember an odd line from it, but I can't remember. But I remember it was... They all looked so much older because they were dressed up, you know.
Makeup and all the rest, yeah. Play hall concerts. Did you have play hall concerts at all, John?
Oh yes, we did, but that was mostly they were good. They're almost set. Most festivals you would have it in the evening, and most of the professors, as we called them, would do a wee turn. Bishop McGill was very good. He was really good.
Does the Pups concert mean anything to you?
The Pups Pups were the first year.
Yeah,
that's right. I remember that.
And they to perform.
Yeah.
For the whole assembly.
that was sort. I remember that. Yeah.
Wonderful.
That in one hand. That was the rule too. You couldn't put your hands in your pockets as a pup.
Yes. And what would happen if you did?
Well, they weren't very pleased with you, and you weren't allowed to button your jacket either. Right. The second year, you buttoned your jacket and one hand in the pocket. Yeah, you weren't. I mean, it was dafty things, but you never questioned them. You just took it.
What was the dress code, John, for an ordinary day?
Yeah, well, it was just ordinary clothes. We were mostly wearing black gear, but we didn't have satans at all. Well, we had satans, but only for church. But there was no. You all wore a tie. You did. You were you did what you did going to school. You know, there was nobody. You weren't told because you knew. You know.
So it was a collar and tie for an ordinary school day.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
And up till third year, it was short trousers.
Well, yeah, but that was just standard. That wasn't Blairs. That was normal. Oh.
Yeah. That was abolished in my time, but it was short trousers from first, second, third year, up to third year. Yeah. So that was, liturgical stuff, John, any high points of liturgy?
Oh, clearly Christmas, when the year I was there, Christmas was the time, you know. But and Easter was superb,
Yeah.
and the liturgy was just beautiful. The liturgy was makes you wish, you see the beauty of it,
Yeah.
and occasion, on the odd occasion, things like, for example, the one Easter, was it one Christmas or one Easter? The organ went off. Father Duffy was. But in the end, they managed. They worked. It actually didn't work at first, and then they arranged some way to get it pumped, I think.
Yeah.
But it was. And he was so. I mean, we were all, because he said, it must have been Easter, because I remember saying, when you came to Holy Thursday, once you did the Gloria, it stopped.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there was a time at Christmas too, when the organ went wonky.
One story told about there was some army personnel in with one of their officers.
Oh no!
And
Were
they
they?
actually manually using the pump.
Were they not Italian prisoners of
I
war?
think they were, aye. And they were actually manually
Yes,
using the bellows.
Yes, and that Adam, because we used to have the Italian. Quite a lot of them came for that would be very on. But what I always thought strange about them, they didn't kneel down; they sat all the time.
Ah, right.
You notice we daft things,
Yeah. Yeah, I
But,
remember one of our priests who'd been in Saint Sulpice and was saying a lot of the French people would pray with their hands out.
Yes,
rather
I've
than
seen
join
that
as
too.
we did,
And we used to, the Italian prisoners used to do our haircuts.
Ah, right.
They used to come along.
Uh-huh.
So you got to know them. And of course, one of the priests made up a song about them for the concerts,
Was it ever written down? Because it would be
No,
invaluable to see.
no,
this section, Rules and constitutions. John, any memories of either keeping the rules or breaking the rules?
I'm sure I broke many a rule. But we used to have a report, Sunday night report. Did you still have that?
Yes, indeed.
And everybody went to the study room
Mm-hmm.
and they told you. I think, and if you, I don't know, when I was there, if you got 3 points,
Mm-hmm.
you got detention.
Not in my time, yeah, but yeah.
And detention meant you did some work in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, that was it. I think I didn't get caught very often. I'm not saying I wasn't doing anything, but I think they didn't really. They were good. If you're picked up, you're picked up. But it was on a Sunday night. You used to do that.
There was a different language, obviously. I mean, some of the offences had odd names. Do you remember any of them?
Now, right now, I don't.
Laying on of hands.
No, I don't. No.
Either hitting someone or even playfully was laying on of hands. And then impertinence to a professor.
No, I don't remember the title. I don't
That
remember.
was 6 hits.
These would things develop, as life goes on.
And if you were on the report, did that have any effect on your career in Blairs?
I don't think it. I mean, you were the detention was the effect.
Right,
I think I wasn't very often in detention.
Right.
Not well. It was worth having because it made people notice, and that it was. I was when you think back of it, it was a very good idea. It was a lot of good thinking to that, and you just accepted authority.
Yeah.
There was
any
no
rules that you thought were no, that's
I don't. At the time, I don't think there was anything at all like that.
Yeah.
They would annoy you because you had to keep them,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't think they were wrong because you wouldn't expect it to be wrong.
Yeah.
God, I wish I could.
Very big question, John. What did you enjoy most about Blairs?
Now that's very difficult. The life was a happy life. I don't remember, with the odd exception of, I think, the second time I was going back. I didn't want to go back because we were leaving home. But other than that, I had a happy time there. I don't remember Obviously, the parents would be annoyed, but no, I would say I had a happy life there. I enjoyed my life.
You make a lot of friends within your own
Yes,
family
yeah.
or whatever.
Well, you had, yeah. I mean, I knew a lot of them then,
Yeah.
but you forget the names in time, you know.
Sure, yeah.
And so few of them come through to priesthood, you know.
Yeah.
That one.
Who was your former patron? Do you remember the patron saint? No?
Yeah, it was Columba.
Oh, Columbus.
Columba.
Columbus, yeah. Aye. Father Jerry Marr around at the time.
Oh no, that I know that name, but can I place it? What did he teach?
His degree was in history, but he
No,
taught
well,
maths.
Oh, he didn't teach me then because it was Belloc that taught me all the time I was there.
Yeah. Things that weren't so enjoyable at Blairs, if anything.
I think the idea of going to bed earlier than people, that would annoy you at the time. You wouldn't think about it all the time, but it was annoying, and you think, my wee brother will be still sitting up listening to the radio.
And did you follow things on the radio like football or?
We didn't have access to the radio except the half hour you got with your form teacher, with your form. Oh, we knew the scores and things like that. You know, they told you things. They kept you in touch with the football. And really, the strange thing was, we didn't really get the news, and it was during the war. And you would have thought that would have been, but then
towards the end of the war.
Yes, but when you're that age, you're not interested in news like that.
Yeah.
God.
Do you feel that Blairs did anything for you for your later life development? What, you know, maybe with the career you went into, or you know, the time you spent after Blairs?
I would say it gave me a discipline, and I mean I often think that there it's not perfect, but it did bring good Christian people, brought more. When I think and I go, and as a teacher, I think our method now for teaching our faith is atrocious. I think we've lost the place, because when I started in teaching, we used the catechism, and it was a good basis on which to work. You didn't always stick to the section you were on, but questions come up. It gave the classes a chance to ask questions. But it's at the moment I find my son's head teacher down in Paisley, and he quite deliberately takes he's in a special school which is mixed, so he takes an RE class because he feels that half of the others don't do it, you know. And that's it's one of the things we're losing in our faith. If you have a very good chaplain, things look up. But I mean, I taught 26 years in St Margaret Mary's in Castlemilk, and we had some very good priests there. But and they were a big influence. But you had to push them to get things done. I mean, they wouldn't think of adding on rosary during May, for example, and you would get that, you know. And that, I still think they need to train, and I would say, no matter what you're short of, get a priest into the school. Have a priest in the school, and if it means you're short somewhere else, be short, because our children don't get it at all.
It's priorities,
I would say it's.
And of course, there are so few priests now.
Yes.
Such responsibility.
Oh, it is. I mean, that there's an excuse now. I mean, but it's one that we've got to, even if they decide to ask the people who become deacons to help in that line, you know, because we need the faith in the schools, and it's one of the things that you bless Blairs for. You were brought up. You had brought up.
Did you keep friends after Blairs, John, with your contemporaries at all? Or?
Not really, because by that time, no, I didn't. Because I went almost immediately into a national service, and I went to Eden. I went right out.
Right,
so that was 2 years with no contact.
Yeah.
But
Would be, yeah.
But the one priest who died quite young, he was in Castlemilk. What was? No, see, your mind goes blank. This fellow came from the Highlands, John McNeil, and John. The first day he was down in Blairs, we had plum jam on the table,
right.
And he said to me, "What's a plum?" And right through his time at school, he was called Plum. Everybody called him Plum.
Any other nicknames you remember?
No,
the nice ones.
No, no. I mean, they did have nicknames. They did, of course.
Yeah.
But you forget. Plum was good. He died very young, and he, strangely enough, he went up to Castlemilk and he was with a Cork priest.
Right.
And they got so used to each other that they spoke to each other in Gaelic. Although they were different
forms.
But they just fitted in, and they talked to each other in Gaelic.
Oh, gee. Did you have the Gaelic at all, the Irish?
Oh yes, I was fluent at it, but right. I would say, I mean, I don't think it would take me long if I were to stay 3 weeks back in my grand's.
Right.
I would. I can follow. If I go into the house, I know what they're talking about,
right.
But I can't answer immediately,
Right.
But it's because I was taught. I got my first teaching in Gaelic, and that was it.
Brilliant.
I still say my prayers in Gaelic.
In Gaelic,
yes.
Interesting.
That's not choice. It's just the way you did it,
Did you find? I mean, the Blairs thing different than having been brought up?
But you pick up. I mean, you can pick up another language for prayers, particularly. I didn't find, because my parents didn't speak to me. We were here almost a year. They insisted in English,
Right, yeah.
Although you slipped, you did.
Did you understand the Gaels from the Hebrides and Blairs?
Well, it was John McNeil. We had to speak slowly, but you could get it. You could.
Great. Basically, John, is there anything that you would like to add to what we've been saying?
I just think.
Is there a special memory, a special person, special anything that you would like to add to it?
No, the old memory is not as good as it should be, But I'm thinking. I remember the walks, going out in the walks together. We used to go to the mill. I enjoyed them. They were good.
Yeah.
And the Christmas, the first Christmas I was there, we didn't get home.
Right, you were saying, yeah.
And we spent 2 days in the gym making up decorations.
Right.
With just string and put leaves on them, and everybody just sat down and did. And you had the whole of the refectory all round, and the classrooms are all done with that. That was great fun.
That would make it more special.
That was, yeah. It was. Yeah. But it was strange not to be home, but then it was, I remember it as a happy, I didn't feel as if I'd been done,
Yeah.
Whereas often you would think, missing home, you did, of course you missed home.
Yeah.
And you wrote a letter every week.
Yes.
And with a page and a half, and you stopped and sent.
Do you, like me, John, tell your children sometimes about how easy a life they have compared to theirs?
Oh, indeed, yes. Yeah. Oh, but it was a good life. I wouldn't want to change it at all,
100%, yeah.
Is there anything else?
John, that's been brilliant. I mean, really.
I wish I could. It's just not.
Yeah, but
I thought I would have a lot more that I could talk about, but you don't. Your memory goes. It's one of the terrible things.
Well, one of the things we're trying to do is maybe keep to about 45 minutes an hour of people's varying things. And at some point, it will be available. Now, it'll be on computer. On YouTube. Now, a lot of us are not particularly into it as much as the younger ones. But if there's somebody in the family who's got access in those computers, you'll be able to get access to it. The other thing is, John, you would have first option. If there's anything you think you've said today, you would say,
no.
I'd rather not have that in, or
No,
feel free, because that's it.
No, not at all. No, I'm quite happy.
You've definitely given us some unique stuff.
I just
And
wish
everybody
to
does, so we've had some absolutely unique stuff, so it's absolutely worthwhile.
But I'm quite sure there's an awful lot more. The other one thing did you ever hear them talking about how they looked forward to the holidays? Used to every night it was a Wednesday, one night a week. One sitkie became 8 weeks.
Countdown.
Yeah. And they used to sing that. Do you remember the song? Happy we will be
When we cross the Brigadier.
as we go rolling home.
That's what now everybody sang that, but it's the first we've heard it here, isn't it?
Everybody sang. We sang it.
Yeah.
Yes, that was great. I remember that as it's something that sticks in your mind, you know.
And we were always told you started it as you crossed the Brigadier, and you stopped, the D as you got to the side. And we were there once, and actually there was a hold up in the traffic. So young lads going blue in the face.
But you'd be going in a bus. We went in taxi.
Yeah, we went in the bus.
We went in taxis.
Oh.
Well, they didn't have buses, you know.
No.
Well, I mean, they wouldn't be able to hire a bus all that readily at that time.
Further back, some of the research we've been doing, they were taken out in cabs, in horse-drawn carriages, way back, obviously.
Oh, gosh.
When they moved from Achwartes to Blairs, they actually were taken by narrowboat down the canals to Aberdeen, and then taken out in coaches out to the college.
Did you have access to the big sledges? Because we still had them in the 80s when the snow.
Sledge?
For the snow.
Oh yes, the sledging was great.
How many was there big crowds up on the hill then?
Well, they would when there was no football, the football would be off. We had one year when we still had snow on St Patrick's Day, and we used to. I mean, that was. I had a sledge. Well, you shared a shared sledge with somebody, But I mean, they were great. And all you did was put your football togs on his trousers, and your jersey. Just put your jersey on.
Aye, football boots to stop you.
Yeah.
The person who actually constructed the big sledges, Archimedes was the big ones. They had names.
Oh, we didn't have the big ones. It was just.
Canon Sheridan, the back.
Oh, he was a lovely man.
He was the one who actually made them.
He was a great man.
Very academic,
yes.
And the rest, and you thought we had him in Christ the King as you
yes, but he was
like real academic. And then I discovered later that he also was very handy with his hands.
He made my sledge.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a link there. Yeah. And again, he was named the Baxter for some reason.
That's right. That's right. Baxter was one of a character from. Memory.
What, from literature?
Yes.
Right.
Contemporary at that time, it would be P.G. Woodhouse.
I'd never
the
read
character.
much of P.G. That's interesting because I've learned today why the Belloc was named. I knew that was his name. So now we've got the back so that we can research as well.
And he was a good, kindly person, very formal,
yes.
if you will. Yes. But when you spoke to him, he became quite different. I used to love when he came to preach in Christ the King, because he really.
I used to say to Irene after I'm saying, that was great, but I'm quite sure 3/4 of the congregation didn't understand.
That's
true. He was quite academic terms, Yeah. And I'm saying, it's brilliant stuff that a few people will just not be catching on to.
No, I would agree with you there. Yeah. But I always used to love when he was speaking.
Talked to him a couple of times out with, with Mass after Mass, and he was a lovely man,
Oh, he was A very kindly man too, yes.
Must admit, John, when I saw you at the final mass in Blairs, I recognised you immediately, and I'm saying, Tyrone, you know, I know John, and I'm thinking, where is it from? Because we've been in St Gabriel's now for over 30 years, you know. Yes. I'm saying, sure, maybe Christ the King.
That's for I stayed in St Gabriel's before we got married.
Right.
That's a few years ago, right?
A few years ago, well, we were at mass this morning in St Gabriel's, and one of the priests is retired, Father Brian McNaught.
Now that name I know, but I don't know him at all.
Well, Brian's retired now, but he lives in the parish.
Oh, and
Brian was a year after me in Blairs.
Is there not another priest there, Father John?
Father Michael Woodford is.
I know Father Woodford.
Is in the other house, but he's seriously ill and has been for many years.
I guess yes, he was.
Haven't seen him.
He was good. He was. The children loved him.
Oh yeah. Hadn't seen him in about 2 years, but somebody was saying occasionally he'll come through for one of the masses.
I used to be good.
Celebrates. I think he just sits.
No, but he spoke to the children if you'd come in.
I mean, he was, you know, he could have been.